Welcome back. I want to tell you a story about the exact day that I switched from being a social drinker to a daily drinker. It was a Sunday night in 2006, and I had just gotten home from spring break with my family. We had been in Florida for a week, and my four kids were at that age where everything was still magical. They loved searching for shells at sunrise and building sandcastles. They played with all their friends while the dads grilled hot dogs and us moms on the mom squad sipped Grey Goose and cranberry out of our Yetis and then slathered sunscreen on everybody every 5 minutes. It was the perfect week, but it did end with a 15-hour drive home. And by the time I got those little bitches to bed, I was exhausted. But I was also wired because I was anxious to get unpacked. I didn't want to have to get everybody ready for school on a Monday in the middle of a huge mess. So I started unpacking the car. And that's when I found the leftover vodka and cranberry juice in the cooler. And I thought, hell yeah, this is going to be fun. So I poured myself a drink and powered through all the laundry. And I didn't get drunk and I wasn't hungover on Monday. I was actually proud of myself. But what I didn't know was that one simple, innocent, completely reasonable decision had changed my relationship with alcohol. Before that night, I had needed a legitimate reason to pour a drink, like it was girls' night or date night, or I was on vacation, or it was a holiday or a weekend. But after that night, I needed a reason to not drink. As soon as I was done driving for the day, it was my turn, me time. Let's go. But do you hear the difference? Before that night, drinking wasn't the default. It was something I just did to celebrate and socialize. But after that night, drinking was the default because it was a coping mechanism. I thought of it as mommy's little helper. My brain had made a new connection that night. Oh, alcohol isn't just for parties. It's also like medicine. It can help me get through the hard stuff. It's exactly what I need when I have to power through, even though I should just be going to bed like everybody else. And that shift in the reasons why I was drinking, my motivation, that shift was invisible. There was no warning light. There was no stop sign. There was no moment where I thought, I wonder if this is a problem. It wasn't a problem. It was a solution. I just didn't know at that point that that solution was going to keep me from being able to fall asleep sober for the next 15 years. And there is a name for what happened to me that night. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism calls it the reinforcement shift. Here's how it works. Your brain runs on dopamine. Dopamine is your motivation neurotransmitter. It's what drives your behavior. And it fires for two very specific reasons. The first reason, source of motivation, is positive reinforcement. It's when a behavior adds something good to an already pleasurable experience. This is when you drink for celebration or being social. It's that beautiful glass of wine that is paired with a meal that you're actually tasting and enjoying. In those moments, alcohol is a bonus. It's the cherry on top. You can want it, but you don't need it because you're already having a good time. The second source of motivation is negative reinforcement. And that's when drinking is reducing the pain of an uncomfortable experience. This is when you're using alcohol to cope with the stress, the overwhelm, or that wired but tired feeling when your body does indeed need a break, but your brain just insists that you keep going. You're not actually adding pleasure. You're subtracting pain. And that's what happened to me on that Sunday night in 2006. I wasn't celebrating myself staying up half the night to finish the laundry, even though that's exactly what I was telling myself. I was running on a deficit. Technically, I was out of gas, but alcohol was helping me ignore that. And once alcohol becomes a stress relief strategy, everything starts to narrow. Your other coping skills atrophy because you're not using them. Your brain is very efficient. And when it finds something that works, it's going to stop suggesting alternatives. It's a lot like the algorithm on your social media feed. Every time you click the dog videos or the political rant, it's going to show you 5 more. And just the same, when you find that alcohol helps you decompress on a Friday night, your brain is going to start suggesting it more often, like, why not on a Monday or a Tuesday? And pretty soon, anytime you feel stress, your brain starts running those alcohol commercials, not because you're an alcoholic, but because your brain thinks that that's the fastest way for you to feel better. It's trying to help you. And over time, drinking stops feeling like such a choice. You start drinking even when you don't want to, because you've literally forgotten that there are better options. They're not showing up in your feed anymore. You don't have a quick answer to, well, what else would I do? And the question itself starts to feel stressful, like it's going to be just one more thing you have to figure out, and you don't have the time or energy for that. So it gets easier and easier to just pour a drink. And that's the reinforcement shift. And what makes it so tricky with alcohol is that it's not black or white. Sometimes drinking is truly enhancing an already pleasant situation, and sometimes it's acting as a coping mechanism. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. But I want to tell you something else about alcohol that explains why using alcohol to cope with stress is such a slippery slope. Studies show that drinking for negative reasons, to cope or to numb or to tolerate something unpleasant, when you do that, habit formation happens 5 times faster. It might take a social drinker 2 decades to notice that, this is kind of getting away from me. I think I need to cut back. But for stressed, anxious, sensitive, and habit drinkers, addiction can take hold within 3 years. And that's because alcohol is a biphasic drug. Biphasic means small amounts and large amounts have opposite effects. The biphasic line is 0.055 blood alcohol level, roughly 2 drinks in an hour for most women. Below that line, alcohol can be genuinely therapeutic. It relaxes your central nervous system. It makes you feel warm and pleasant and a little more social. That's the buzz. But here's the part that nobody tells you. Your buzz is like a bucket. Once it's full, it's full. And when you cross the line from buzzed to intoxicated, then the negative side effects of alcohol start to compound because it's a depressant. And your brain's number one job is to keep you alive. So it's not going to let you get so relaxed that you forget to breathe. So the more you drink, the more your brain has to release cortisol and adrenaline to counterbalance the depressive effects. And cortisol and adrenaline are your stress hormones. Those are the very things you wanted to have a drink to escape. Cortisol specifically stays in your system long after the alcohol wears off. The buzz fades in a few hours, but your cortisol levels are still jacked. That's why you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with your heart pounding and your mind spinning as it brings up everything that's wrong in your life. That voice at 3 a.m. that tells you that you're an out of control idiot, that's not your conscious. That's your cortisol. You need to understand that you think how you feel. And when your stress hormones are elevated, you feel bad. And when you feel bad, you think bad thoughts. And then the next morning, you are even more depleted than you were the day before. Plus, now you have a headache, and getting through today is going to be even harder. So it makes a lot of sense that the temptation to pour another drink later on is even harder to resist. This becomes a cycle. You have a stressful day, you drink to cope, and then you sleep like shit, and you wake up feeling more stressed, and you have another stressful day, and then you drink some more to cope. It feels like a hamster wheel because it is. And the cruelest part of this is that you can't see it clearly from inside of it, because every time you pour a drink at the end of the day and you feel some relief, your subconscious is going to give alcohol the credit for solving the problem instead of realizing that it's actually making it worse. But here's the part that I want you to hear. This is not just about how much you drink or even how often, not yet anyway. This is about why you drink. And it's about the discrepancy in the story you're telling yourself that you just enjoy drinking and that's why you want it so much. That's why it's hard to tell yourself no or to stop after 1 or 2 like everybody else. That's not it. That's bullshit. Alcohol isn't adding more pleasure to your life. It's helping you cope with the pain of your life. And that's the shift. That's the line. And if that wasn't the reality, you wouldn't be watching this video trying to figure out a way to change. And the truth is that if you do want to change, you have to take action right now because you are not going to wake up one day and stop wanting to feel better. And the longer you wait to do something about this, the harder it's going to feel because there's also something else going on. Every time that you do try to cut back or you promise yourself that this won't happen again, that you're not going to finish the bottle, you won't drink during the week, or you'll just stop when everybody else stops. Every single time that you make a plan and then you don't stick with the plan, there's a part of your brain called the habenula that registers that as a failure. Think of your brain as your internal scorekeeper. Its job is to keep track of what's not working so you can stop wasting your energy trying, which means that every time you perceive that you have failed to drink right, whatever that means for you in any given situation, every time you don't do it right, your habenula literally blocks access to the dopamine that you're going to need to try again. It's literally the kill switch on your motivation because it's trying to protect you from another failure. But hear me when I say, open your mind. Failure isn't real. There's just what works and what doesn't work and what you can learn from both. Change isn't a performance, my friends. It's an iterative process. And as long as you let that perfectionistic part of your brain keep you from feeling good about making small improvements and moving the needle a little bit, because the perfectionist in you wants a full and permanent change overnight, then you're going to keep dissolving into a puddle of what is wrong with me every time you make a mistake. The only reason that you keep making the same mistake over and over is because you're not learning from it. And instead of seeing this for what it is, a project or a puzzle with 100 pieces, you see yourself as the problem. And the worse you feel about yourself, the less capable you are of putting all these pieces together. Shame is the problem here, not the solution. Shame is telling you that you have to hide and lie. Don't let anybody know what's really going on. And the longer you let shame make your decisions, the bigger and the badder this gets. Trust me that when I say your drinking is not a personal failing, it's a neurological response to stress and the perception that you are failing because you haven't been able to fix this on your own. You have to stop trying harder. You need to try smarter. More willpower, more rules, more shaming and shoulding on yourself. That's only making this worse. The only pathway out of this is that you're going to have to stop thinking about this as a drinking problem. Again, it's not about the alcohol. You have a very sophisticated nervous system that has learned a coping strategy, and it worked until it didn't, and then now it's taken on a life of its own. And the only reason that you've actually even gotten to this point is because nobody has ever explained to you what's really happening. You're not weak. You're not broken. And you're not one of those people that just can't handle it. You're someone who's been trying to solve this problem with the wrong set of tools. And that's fixable. Now, before you go watch the next video, I want you to pause and take a moment to reflect. I want you to identify your own Sunday night in 2006 moment, that innocent, perfectly reasonable sounding decision you made that shifted your own relationship with alcohol. Because once you see this, you can't unsee it. And in the next video, I'm going to explain the willpower trap and why trying harder to drink less just keeps backfiring and what to do instead. I'll see you there.